So no Amid this week.
Yeah,
Just
no Amid this week.
just us.
He's still in Japan, right?
Still in Japan for the second time this year.
Oh my god. I wish I had that money.
Yeah, me too, honestly.
Oh my god. Going to Japan twice.
And that PTO. I guess he stockpiled all his during COVID. But we talked about that last week. Anything interesting happened in your life?
Oh my god. I don't want to talk about what happened last week.
Okay, we'll talk about my week. I was at a May Day celebration this summer that my family puts on in the woods of West Virginia. And when I say May Day, I don't mean the labor practice, the labor May Day. I mean the pagan celebration.
Did you just go to like a midsummer type
It is
deal?
a lot like a midsummer. There were a lot of flower crowns. It was weird because there's like a very real... It's like the entire town of Hinton, West Virginia descends on my family's farm. But usually it was bad.
Did you traumatize a tourist?
It was poor weather this year. No, not. Well, I wasn't there for it. They might have.
Okay.
But nobody dies typically at our celebration. But they do like dance around a pole. There's a lot of flower crowns and everything. I actually missed the whole ritual thing because I was hungry and I went into town with some friends to go get a sandwich.
I see that,
which was a little intentional because I don't like the. There's like a real split between between the people that are like doing the spiritual side of it and the people that want to do some drinking in the woods. You can guess which side I'm in.
The drinking in the woods, obviously.
Yeah, the woods drinking. And I did enjoy some woods drinking. I didn't get as tipsy this year because I apparently earned a reputation that I don't think is deserved a couple years ago. But it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I love seeing my family. My dad's band performed. They're called Vela Flux, if anybody wants to look them up. He plays guitar and keyboard and he sings. And there's a guy on saxophone that really steals the show. They're pretty crazy.
Oh, it's a guy on saxophone.
And then, you end the night with a bonfire where we sat around and talked about movies around the fire. It was a good old time. And then I had to sleep in an Airbnb, which I don't like doing. Hey, welcome to Game Talk. I'm your host, Connor, and today I'm joined by Mike.
Hello.
And no Amid this week. He is in Japan, as we mentioned. So me and Mike thought we would have a little discussion about emulation, because we think it's something the two of us care about that Amid maybe wouldn't have as much to say about.
Maybe he'd come out of the surprise woodwork and say that emulation's a crime or something.
Yeah, maybe. So what's your experience with emulation, Mike? How much do you...
I've emulated a good bit of things. I know that sounds like I'm doing illegal things, but it's not illegal if you don't pirate the games.
Right.
Like, it's as simple as, hey, you popped up the Wii Virtual Console to play a Nintendo 64 game. That's emulation.
The first time I played, I think, Mario Kart 64 was emulation on the Nintendo Virtual Console on the Wii. I played a lot of games like that. Ristar...
Yeah. Quite literally, if it's not on original hardware, it's emulated.
Probably. The exception being like GameCube on the Wii or like Game Boy on the Game Boy Advance. It's a little hazier there, but I think
it's hardware emulation at that point, right?
No, Nintendo's weird about it. The GameCube and the Wii are literally like the same processor with a little bit of extra power. It's like a higher system clock. Yeah, so
crazy.
It's a little hazier with Nintendo, and the Game Boy Advance literally had all the hardware of a Game Boy inside it to play Game Boy games.
Again, crazy.
And then there's like other types of emulation, like if you buy an Analog Pocket, which I have, which is a Game Boy emulation device, it is emulation. They will claim on their website that it's not, but they do something called FPGA emulation, which emulates at a hardware level instead of at a software level. And software emulation is more like intercepting the graphics update calls. I won't get too into the weeds. Typically, hardware emulation with FPGA is more accurate, but most modern emulators are to the point now that you are not going to notice the difference if you're just somebody who wants to enjoy.
So up to date and so especially Wii and GameCube emulation.
Yeah,
you don't.
Dolphin is industry defining. Dolphin is so good. It is like the GameCube emulator, and really it's the emulator. It's the one I've used more than any other, probably. I like to, because I actually have a fairly sizable retro game collection, both software and hardware. which is to say I have the games and the consoles. But I don't always want to go mess with that. Sometimes getting my NES to fire up is a pain. Sometimes
Oh
just messing with
god.
my GameCube.
It's also, as consoles age, they don't have the same, outputs that they used to.
Right? My big TV in my living room straight up cannot hook up to an N64. It's
Yeah.
too low resolution.
It also doesn't have does it have still do we still use components on TVs? I haven't looked at the back of one for a couple years.
I think my AV receiver does. So I actually may be able to get that to work. That might upscale. But
I guess
my TV before this that I bought in 2018 did have component. Because I did this was when I learned this. I plugged my N64 into it and it did not display.
yeah,
And that was when
too
I
low.
kind of got into RetroArch because I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to have a CRT set up. So I got into RetroArch, which is the other like big name in emulation these days. It is a very console-like UI that will sort your games, and it will essentially just if you don't do anything else, it'll just pick the best emulator for the game that you plug into it, and it
Yeah,
is a very plug-and-play solution.
it's nifty from an archival sense because consoles break. Consoles are
Yes.
eventually gonna fall apart. A capacitor's gonna go bad. Something's gonna go wrong that cannot be repaired.
Right, so I like having my game library backed up on my PC. I like having it all playable. There's also just a convenience. I actually do have a retro setup right now in my bedroom, but I just don't always. Sometimes I'm sitting on the couch and I'm looking at my modern games, and that's not what I want to play right now, but I don't want to get up. So sometimes it's just nice to have all my games in one place, and that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
RetroArch does for me more than anything else. And RetroArch is like highly configurable. You can get pretty close to the look of an old CRT TV if you play with shaders. You kind of have to do some legwork for that. But what I really like about it is like if I'm playing GameCube or something, starting with GameCube, a little bit with N64, those games upscale beautifully. They look good at 4K.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have a reasonably modern computer, you can probably run them at 4K.
I recently upscaled Jack 2 to, I think, 1080p, I think, is what I upscaled
Yeah.
it to just to test. Oh, it looks like a modern game. I did not expect it to look that good.
They do. They look
Upscaled.
like a modern AA game typically is
Yeah.
what I would think it looks like. Mario Sunshine is one I return to all the time, especially since I have a GameCube controller adapter for my PC. And that brings up you can also mod these games now. A lot
Yeah.
of games, Sonic games especially lately. I was just watching today a mod for Shadow the Hedgehog that makes it slightly less terrible, I guess, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, and with ROM hacks and everything as well, people are using these base emulated games to create an entirely new games in the same engine
Right. I mean, look
without
at
having to have
Pokemon.
anything. Yeah, Pokemon has such a large ROM hack community.
It's huge.
Nintendo
This
hates it.
is
Nintendo hates fun,
well,
but
they're a little right to hate it because I mean this genuinely. There's a better product to be found in the ROM hack community than there is modern
yeah.
Pokemon games.
Which is funny, Sega also, you can find better Sonic games than what Sega produces
That
in the
used to
ROM
be the
hack
case.
community.
That's less
Well,
true. Sega's been doing better lately,
yeah,
but
it's
that
also
was true
because
for a
they
very
started
long time.
hiring devs from the ROM hack community.
Exactly.
They
And
see a beautiful, beautiful Sega or Sonic the Hedgehog ROM hack, and instead of threatening to legally bury the developer, they bring them onto a team and tell them to make an official Sonic game.
that's absolutely right. That's how you get Sonic Mania, which
Yeah.
is probably my favorite 2D Sonic game. Sonic Adventure 2 still gotta take the cake for my favorite Sonic game of all
It's
time.
crazy how even randomizers. I've been watching randomizers for various games, and it's still like it blows my mind that someone will play Ocarina of Time over and over and over again.
I'm a sucker for a Wind Waker randomizer.
It's crazy.
Wind Waker feels like it was built to be an open world game, and those randomizers turn it into one.
Oh yeah, it's neat to see every time they boot up this game, it's gonna be radically different. They don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But that's all possible with emulation. Sure, you can push it back to original hardware, but you still have to emulate it at some point to modify the code.
What's the most recent hardware you've emulated?
Most recent, I think it was PlayStation 2 or
Okay.
PlayStation 3. I think is the most recent hardware
I have
I've
done
emulated.
some Wii U. I wanted to play.
Oh no, I've done Wii U as well. I forgot.
Yeah.
I played Breath of the Wild emulated.
Oh, really? That's how you played it? I wanted to play the Wind Waker HD remake, and I actually don't have a Wii U anymore. So, in order to play it, I had to get an emulator out, and I played it on my Steam Deck. I actually don't like it as much as the original, so I ended up. There are mods for the GameCube version, which I think visually looks better. There are some mods for it to give it the features from the HD remake, and I think that's the peak. If you're gonna play Wind Waker, I think that's how you play it. If you're willing to do your homework. In fact, what was it? A year ago on the show, I think I talked about Super Mario Eclipse. Maybe that was in November. Super Mario Eclipse.
Somewhere recently.
Yeah, Super Mario Eclipse I can recommend so highly. It's an insanely good ROM hack, I guess, but it's more like an expansion of Super Mario Sunshine, and I love that. I've actually been thinking about replaying it recently.
Yeah, with the modern consoles being digital only or pushing a lot more digital storefronts, having those backups in the form of ROMs or ISOs really important, because what happens to the entire Xbox arcade lineup in the 360 now that it's all shut down? Unless you installed any of those games, they're gone.
Well, what happens to any of the this is more topical, the Nintendo Switch game keys? Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
The Nintendo Switch 2, a lot of games are being sold. You get a cartridge, but all that cartridge is a key to play the game. It doesn't have any data on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's like most third-party games.
Absolutely crazy.
And, those are just not going to work one day.
Yeah, those games just don't work.
Yeah.
But you can hoard as much hardware and physical games as you want, but some games don't even get physical releases. A lot of indies won't get a physical release.
It's expensive to do. I get why they're doing it, because a Nintendo Switch cartridge is probably, I don't know the numbers, but if I had to guess, $15 like for just the storage medium, and you're only paying, God willing, $60, $70 for so like that's like 25%, 20% of the cost is just
someone
going
below a AAA. It doesn't really make sense to go through a physical release anymore.
No.
Back in the day, maybe when like the 360 era, but even then, people were still throwing games on the arcade that were simple and easy to play.
There are also games coming out today for platforms like the NES. There was an NES game released not super long ago. Oh my God, I'm saying not super long ago. I think it might have been 2018, but still like closer to today than to the time when the NES was relevant. Micro Mages, and if not for emulation, that would be kind of pointless, but it's easy enough to get NES emulation going that they could release that game. And if you have the hardware to make it happen, you could play it on an NES, but the vast majority of people that played that game either played it on PC or on like a retro handheld with emulation.
Yeah. It enables the support for these platforms way past when the original devs push it through.
Right.
Like, you're gonna sit here and tell me that we should crack down on emulators when for a really long time, and still emulation is the only way to play any Ace Combat game before 6, unless you can track down a physical copy and get a PlayStation 2, which isn't really hard to get a hold of a PlayStation 2, but the physical copy might cost you more.
The PS2s are expensive now. They're like $100.
Old like Game Boy, old Pokemon games.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They're like $60, $70 still. And
it's obscene.
That's almost a 20-year-old game. Over a 20-year-old game now. I'm not going to spend $60 that is not going to go into Nintendo at all.
Exactly. I'm not an advocate for piracy, but the developers are not making money when you buy a used copy.
Yeah.
They're just not.
If you're buying a copy of Pokemon Emerald right now, Nintendo's not going to see a single dime of that $45 to $60 you paid.
Now, if you're choosing between paying for Nintendo Online to play emulation on the Switch, which is the kosher way of doing this, or illegally downloading the ROMs, which is definitively illegal. There's no question. It is illegal. Yeah, that's a moral quandary you have to deal with. I personally, I own my games physically. I did buy them used. I'm not interested in paying a monthly subscription to access 30-year-old games. That makes me angry.
Pokemon Emerald is going for like $20, it looks like.
Oh, really? That's low. It's got to be fake.
They can't be genuine cartridges.
No. That's
I
the other problem. It is I mean, I guess if you just wanna play the game, it doesn't matter if the cartridge is real or not. They work. Sometimes they
yeah,
have issues with saves and stuff, but generally they work. The repros are fine. It is annoying as a collector how common
yeah.
the reproduction carts are.
Like, these $20 cartridges, there's no way that this is a real, authentic
No.
cartridge, and you can't tell. You really cannot tell until you look into the cartridge.
No, you usually have to open them up and look at
Yeah,
the PCB in order to determine.
like,
As
what's to
opposed to my
stop them
totally authentic downloaded ROM that I got
yeah,
off.
what's to stop them from putting this emerald green cartridge together
Yeah. No, I
and
was
just
actually
slapping a sticker on
developing
it?
this is another use case for emulators. They're great. They have great debugging tools and everything these days. I was developing a Game Boy game, and there's an egotistical side to this, but I wanted to give it to some friends as a Christmas gift. And the cheapest way that I could find to do that was to buy a bunch of reproduction Pokemon games and reflash the carts because
Yeah.
typically the repro cart hardware is reflashable, and they were so cheap I was going to be able to get them for like under $1 a piece or something on AliExpress. And that was just a funny tidbit. But with emulators as a developer, you can even like just standard debugging tools that are easy, like print statements. I'm sure if anybody programs a lot, you know that you put a print statement in your code so that you know something is running. That's something you can't do on real hardware, but
Yeah.
unless you have a dev kit, which I don't. But when I was using a Game Boy emulator, that was easy to do.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it just feels weird that you do have companies that do crack down on emulators.
Yeah, I mean Nintendo's very litigious about emulators, but uh they use them all the time. There's a GameCube. This was something frustrating. There was a working GameCube emulator on the Nintendo Switch, but they never released GameCube games to Nintendo Online for the Switch. They're saving it for the Switch too.
Which
But that was
cra
how Sunshine ran on the Super Mario All Stars collection. It was emulated. I think Galaxy
absolutely
was as well.
crazy. And it's weird that these companies will also take code from the fan-made
Right.
emulators
Yep.
to use it in their own
Because
software
they're open
emulation layers.
source. Right.
It's so
Now,
crazy that they'll sue these people to oblivion after they've done the hard part of getting it to run.
do you know like the history of like Bleem and HL64? Have you heard of these?
I've heard of Bleem, isn't that the only reason we have emulators right now?
A little bit, yeah. Bleem was a PlayStation 1 emulator, and it was big actually at the same time as the PS1, and so Sony sued them because they were like, we're losing hardware sales to Bleem. People are just buying Bleem for their PC and playing our games there. And they did
And it was
Bleem
for the
1.
Dreamcast too.
Yeah, Bleem 1. My understanding of the story is that Bleem 1 in that emulation remained legal, but they lost in that it cost them so much that they went out of business anyway.
Yeah.
And since then, everyone has been kind of worried. It's why people tend to roll over anytime Nintendo threatens them. They do not want to relitigate this because right now emulation is legal, but there is a concern that if there is another lawsuit, that ruling could change. So everybody tries to play it pretty safe with their emulation and everything to keep the status quo that we have now, which is pretty favorable, I would argue, to emulation. The other one was HL64, which was an N64 emulator on PC, and it was one of the earlier instances of high-level emulation, which is to say, instead of trying to emulate the specific processor calls, try to actually read the code as C code and then run it. It's more like Proton or something, or like what a modern GameCube emulator would do than like an old school NES emulator, which is actually just interpreting the machine code, the assembly, and
I can't
doing
find
what they do.
anything about HL64.
I might have, is it Ultra 64
Hey,
or
it might
Ultra?
be is it Ultra HLE?
Yeah, Ultra HLE. Thank you.
It's like
Yes.
HL64 doesn't exist.
Ultra high level emulation is what the name is. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was getting wrong. Yeah, Ultra HLE. It was a fascinating product. I never had it. I think you had to have a really powerful computer too. But it where they ran into hot water was I think they actually started patching the games. And that was where Ultra HLE ran into trouble. They made some changes to Mario 64 to get it to run better on PCs. And that actually you get into some hot water there. It's one of the reasons, like, when you download a like Super Mario Eclipse now, they will not give you obviously they can't give you a Mario Sunshine ROM because that's illegal. They can only give you the extra bits, and you have
They
to use
can
a
give you
patcher.
a patcher. That is
Yeah.
all they can give. It's even randomizer sites, you'll have to just patch the ROM. If you have a ROM on hand, you can patch it, but if you don't, then you can't really use the emulator or the randomizer.
Right, and a lot of emulators ship without this is like something messy that developers console developers did. I think this is like literally to screw with emulation developers, but you can't distribute a console's BIOS. And this is actually something you can still run into with RetroArch a little. RetroArch does not typically come with the BIOS. Sometimes you have to get it separately. It's usually like a one-button fix or something in the UI, but the actual download of RetroArch does not include the BIOS for something like the PS1, I don't believe.
Which is
and I
crazy.
think you can actually, it's just it's a litigious thing. They have to distribute them separately because technically they could get in trouble for that BIOS. So it needs to come from a separate place so that if they get in trouble, like, the main RetroArch is not gone. Like, you can look at now this is when you get in hot water in my mind. Running a Nintendo Switch emulator when the Nintendo Switch is still, like, hot, when it's still new and everything, you're not necessarily, you maybe bought your games, but you're probably committing piracy. And so I get why Nintendo is so litigious against that, and they shut down, what was it, Yuzu? Was Yuzu the emulator?
I think it was Yuzu.
Yeah,
they shut
and
down
I
the
don't...
3DS one recently, too.
Right, because it was the same developers, Citra.
They were trying. I think Nintendo usually steps in when the developer tries to raise any money to keep their project going.
Yep, when they use Patreon or any charging. And that's tricky.
It's so tricky.
Yeah, I get it. I get why they want the money, especially. But I do agree. Like, it is bad for the Yuzu developers to make money helping you pirate Nintendo products. I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I have thought about getting the Yuzu emulator because I own a legal copy of Tears of the Kingdom, and I would like to play it at 4K, and I would like to not pay the stupid $10 upgrade on the Switch too. I don't want to do that. For what is probably going to be a worse experience than I would get emulating it on my PC. That kind of is what it is, though, right?
Yeah.
That is, you have to draw your own lines here, because while some of this is or is not illegal, you're not going to get caught.
Yeah, they in the end, Nintendo doesn't. Well, Nintendo cares, but they only care to stop it at the source. The war on piracy and going after, like, the individual person illegally downloading things,
that doesn't happen, really. It's usually the distributor.
It died years upon years ago.
Yeah.
Because they just realized they can't just track down every single person that is
it's a losing battle.
Illegally downloaded a copy of Pokemon Emerald. They just have to go for the source.
Especially because, like, I have downloaded... I did not as a kid have a way to get my... I do now, but I did not as a kid have a way to get my ROMs off of a cartridge. And so I would own the cartridge, but I wanted to play Pokemon Emerald on my phone, so I would download a ROM. Like, that's a gray area legally, is how I've seen it described. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a lawyer. But I don't feel bad about it. I bought the game twice because I lost my copy of Pokemon Emerald at an Olive Garden because my dad set it on the napkin and the napkin was green, so I walked off without it, and the busboy either stole it or threw it away. And I'm still really upset about it.
Oh my god.
And so my grandma bought me another copy for my birthday, and I never finished it because...
I lost my copy of Yoshi's Island because the dog decided to eat it.
No, for the Game Boy?
Yeah.
For the Game Boy Advance.
And then I later got it again and beat it.
Tragic. I was actually emulating the Super NES version of Yoshi's Island not that long ago.
Yeah, the Super NES version plays a little different too.
Yeah. Good game.
Fantastic game.
Maybe the best Super NES game, actually, if we're keeping score. I don't know about that, but it's up there.
Yoshi's Island's up there. Fantastic game. And it's weird. It's weird to say that emulation is the only way to experience a lot of these older games for newer people to the medium as well.
Yeah.
Or else you're gonna get the setup fees.
You look at, like, a lot of people, the older Castlevania games, the only way they've played them is either emulation on their PC or through these Castlevania collections, which
Yeah.
are emulation, and you can get them on PC, and they are just emulation. I think
Most
that's
of
how
the
Sega
Genesis games,
typically.
yeah, most of the good, like, the really quality Genesis games have been re-released in some format,
Yeah,
emulated because Sega just doesn't care. And
yeah.
finding a
Namco
Genesis
the Namco classics, they love to release their emulated games as well, like Pac-Man, Galaga, all of that.
and getting a hold of a Sega Genesis, like an original hardware Sega Genesis,
I just don't want to. I hate that
it's yeah,
controller.
it's $109 pre-owned.
Well, of course it's pre-owned.
Yeah, it's $100+ if you want it in box and you don't want it to be covered in someone else's stuff,
And then you gotta
350.
get a TV that you can hook it up
Yeah,
to. I like the tube TV and everything, but I just don't always feel like hearing that shrill, like,
and moving it's a pain.
tone. It is a pain. I don't know how many more moves mine will survive, frankly,
Yeah,
because
they're a dying breed too. CRTs
yeah, even
aren't
just how
really
long are they
made.
gonna work for?
Yeah,
You know, that it is not a technology that is built to last forever. I'm shocked that there's no burn-in on mine for how many hours I
yeah,
spent playing Phantasy Star.
technology will eventually just stop working. It's just the inevitability of everything.
Yeah.
Your TV will stop working. Eventually there will be 0 CRT TVs left in the world.
Yeah.
That is
So
just
from a
the
preservationist
reality.
perspective, you need to find a way to make these work, in a on more modern hardware.
Like, we've already reached the point in PCs where PC games released
They don't work
30
anymore.
years ago require a ton of hoops to jump through just to get it working. Original Oblivion, it has a ton of issues.
Really?
It not as much as Fallout 3 and New Vegas to a lesser extent, but it still does have a lot of issues trying to get it to work. A lot
I
of
haven't booted up
crashing.
Oblivion. Yeah, in a long time. I
Um,
didn't know that.
Fallout 3, which is a fairly recent game in the technology timescale,
Yeah.
doesn't for the longest time until Bethesda patched it, doesn't work
Mm.
on modern PCs because it depends on Games for Windows Live, which shuttered in, like, 2016.
Yeah, so this isn't a discussion you have with PC too often because most older PC games will just work, but that's a
If they were
GOG.
if they were reliant on an old even there were some games that were only built for, like, Voodoo graphics card.
Yeah, I remember
It can't work if it can't work off of Voodoo, you're screwed. You
I
better
was
get
seeing
original hardware.
back when I lived in Morgantown, I wanna say 2022 or so, I was seeing this girl who really wanted to play the Nancy Drew games at my house, and so I had to, like, dig up a disk drive, which I did not have in my PC, and then, like, it took me maybe an hour or so of, like, troubleshooting just to get this game to launch. Once it launched, it ran fine. But
Yeah.
PC, you don't run into emulation as much. You have things like Proton. I bet Proton ends up being a really valuable tool. I bet as long as Proton is being maintained, I don't think we're gonna lose PC games. That would be my guess because it is such a powerful emulation tool. Uh, but you can look at also the efforts of a website like GOG. Is Good Old Games, is that what that stands for?
Yeah, it says it's a CD Projekt's Red's preservation.
Yeah, and it's a really good
Studio.
site. They even take, like, they do polls on what games they now people don't always understand this. I saw a bunch of people putting, like, Monster Hunter 4 on the poll for what games should come to GOG. They don't port games. They get old PC games working again, games that
Yeah.
have a PC port.
They put all the dev work into getting all the patches, all the unofficial patches usually packed in there with it too. The
Really?
Yeah, I think for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, they do, pack the official patch in the installer,
Yeah.
which is the only way to play the game. Honestly, if you're gonna play Bloodlines, the first Bloodlines, you need to download the fan patch anyway, or else it's just not gonna work properly.
Right.
So, any fan patches, usually they'll dip in there as well.
That's cool that they do that. I have never bought a game on GOG. I like their app. I like GOG Galaxy to put all my PC games in one place.
I've bought a couple of games on GOG,
Yeah.
a
I don't
couple
play a lot of
older.
retro PC games. I play a lot of retro games on my PC, but it's usually with a controller.
Yeah, I'm a slave to retro PC games, so
Yeah, I believe it.
yeah, there's so many old RTSs that are only playable through, troubleshooting steps, which
He
sucks.
Hearing you talk about, Oblivion not working on modern PCs kills me because I at one point would have told you Steam solves this problem. I would say, like, once a game is on Steam, it's got to be maintained. But I have Oblivion on Steam, and if it has issues, that's kind of crazy, upsetting, really.
I don't know if it did have issues. I think it does. Let me check.
Okay.
No, it works fine on Windows 10 at least, but Windows 11 might be.
I'm on Windows 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
Granted,
looks like
I'm not
Windows
gonna play it.
11 has issues as well.
I'm a remaster guy now, but
yeah, the remaster is just the optimal way to play the game, and
it is.
It's going to ensure that it's going to run at least for another 10, 15 years.
I think that's a fair assessment.
I mean, modern PC games have gotten better about being more compatible, I guess.
Right.
We're not seeing as many issues now that Steam's kind of the de facto go-to for a lot of their online services and DRM.
I do wonder what we're going to run into with things like NVIDIA dropping support for PhysX, though. I mean, that's small so far, but
I mean, most games and their PhysX really didn't exist anyway.
Right. It was never mandatory.
Yeah, it was never mandatory. Like, I know PlanetSide has PhysX. They dropped that. Or PlanetSide 2 did.
God, PlanetSide 2 was a hell of a game.
Yeah, it was cooler when I had PhysX, but they dropped it, so whatever. I don't think PhysX is going to kill anything. It's just going to get grayed out, and we're never going to experience what PhysX did for these games. I think one of the only games that PhysX worked in was, I think, one of the Borderlands games.
Yeah, that's the one that I saw Digital Foundry doing a test in. And I wonder if we'll get an emulation of PhysX that uses some modern tech to make it work.
Yeah.
Although I think that's what it does now. I think NVIDIA is emulating PhysX on their cards now, and it runs really, really poorly. It runs sub 60 FPS on like a 4090, I think.
Borderlands 2 used PhysX mandatory.
Mandatory? I didn't know that.
Many older PC games are going to look and run better on older cards.
Yeah.
So Borderlands 2 runs terrible under 60 FPS on a 3090 9800X 3D. Under 60 FPS on Borderlands 2 because they're emulating PhysX.
That's crazy. And I played that on a 1070, I think.
Yeah, I can run it on my 3070 at like 144 because it still supports PhysX.
That's fascinating.
So either they have to add some kind of emulation for PhysX, or NVIDIA just outdated a bunch of old games.
So back on emulation, I don't know if we have anything major more to say other than I would like to know your favorite game, the one you go back to all the time that you're always emulating.
The one that I'm always emulating? I don't know. I really don't play a lot of old console games.
Yeah. Anymore. I can go first if you need to think.
Yeah.
Mine is, and it's actually like, this is my go-to emulation game, but it's also in my NES right now because I bounce between real hardware and emulation. It's Castlevania 1. I could just play that game over and over. I've never beaten it. I've never beat Dracula because I'm like not a real gamer, I guess. But and I don't use save states when I play it. But I love that game. I could play it a million times and still have a good time. I love Castlevania.
Yeah, I really don't have anything that I keep. I never really pop up emulators, only to like toy around with a game that I used to play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually will play through a whole game. I tried to play through Banjo-Kazooie. That was how I played it when I talked about it on the show, and did not have a ton of love for it. I actually tried it again not that long ago, but I hated it again, so I didn't bring it up on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. That might hurt Ahmed.
Yeah, no, he's not here. That's okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really do a lot of emulation anymore. There's just so many modern games that I still.
I remember you did your randomizer. You went on a randomizer kick not terribly long ago.
Yeah, I played through all the Ace Combat games on emulation, so that's not. I just don't go back to them. I don't go back to a lot of games. Once I finish a game, I kind of drop it and don't touch it for 3 to 4 decades, you know?
Okay. Well, what games are you playing lately?
Lately, I mean, I finished High Rank in World like 2 weeks ago.
So you're into Master Rank?
I haven't touched Master Rank yet. I've been kind of doing post-High Rank content.
Okay. So have you done Kulve Taroth? Did you get a group of people?
I have not done Kulve Taroth yet.
I don't know how to do I don't know if you even can do it because there's not that huge of a player base.
If I guarantee you, if I SOS flare a Kulve Taroth, I might be able to get one. because I got
Oh yeah, I think
people for
so. Because there's still
SOSs.
probably 10,000 people playing it minimum.
Oh yeah, the minimum.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have some mixed feelings on it because I still have not failed a hunt yet.
Really?
Yeah, I have not dropped a single triple cart in any single
I don't think
monster.
I failed a hunt. I mean, you're still using the defender armor, aren't you?
At this point, a high rank, it's most of the armors that I can craft are better than it.
Yeah, at the end, at the very
Yeah,
end. That would be true.
especially against the elders. That
Yeah.
still hurt.
I don't
They
think I
just
failed a
weren't
hunt
hard.
until I might have failed against Valhazak once because I didn't have any null berries, and he's kind of
Yeah, that
annoying.
once I got no berries literally made him trivial because he doesn't really do much.
But I don't think I did. I don't think I triple carded until master rank.
Yeah.
But I do think I didn't play any of the end game of high rank, and so I went into master rank with like gear that was just kind of good enough to beat the Elder Dragons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm kinda gearing up to enter Iceborne properly. I don't wanna focus too much on a build, but I kinda wanna get the gist of my build done.
Because I don't know if I triple carded, but I struggled with the very first hunt of Iceborne. I found it very
Yeah.
difficult. I don't think I triple carded.
Well, some of the things that I've noticed is that why people say World's harder, and that's just because there's a lot more moments where you are out of control of situations.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
It's not harder, it's just if you get hit, the chances of you getting hit in a corner and trapped there and carded from 0 to 100
I certainly
are
don't think
so high.
before master rank. I don't think there's anything in world that is harder than Arch Tempered Raydao.
Yeah.
I think Arch Tempered Raydao is harder than anything in base world.
And I didn't really have trouble with Arch-Tempered Raydao, mainly because Wilds gives me so many defensive options to roll into.
What weapon did you use
I use
against him?
Chargeblade.
That's what I used too. I did triple cart my first try against Raydao. And maybe my second try, I think.
I think I only maybe 1 or 2 carts I think I got.
Were you solo against him?
Yeah, I was solo.
Yeah. I wanted to solo him first. I was super rusty. I hadn't played Monster Hunter in a couple weeks. I guess we're talking about Wilds now. I really like that fight though. I really like how easy it is to get like locked into a one-shot combo.
I like how it counters some of the more defensive playstyles too.
Yeah.
Because if you perfect block, you might get hit by a second explosion.
It makes me really excited to see the other Arch Tempereds that are coming.
It gave him more tools to deal with the defensive playstyles that are given in Wilds.
And I do think it's definitively the hardest fight in the game right now. I think it clears Xochitl pretty easily. Yeah. And I think it's my favorite fight in the game. I'm really excited. Are you going to do the time attack mission that's up right now?
I might. I still need to farm Arc Tempered Raydao for his armor parts, though. I don't
know if you can anymore. I think the time attack might be the only way to hunt him now. Because he's an event.
Oh, I lost you. I disconnected.
Oh, uh-oh. You hear me?
Yeah, we both disconnected there for a second.
Okay, so I'll just say it again.
Event Quest is still around.
Okay, his event quest is still around. I thought it went away like Tuesday.
No, I think it's still around, so I still will probably be able to find. I think it's all month.
He is at some point going to be taken out of the game though, which I think is stupid. He'll come back at the end, but I don't like that at all, that he's being removed, because
I mean, that's what they did in World too, right?
It is, but I wasn't there for that. I didn't play. I played World at launch, at PC launch, I think, but I didn't finish it. I only got through low rank, I think. And like when it rolled credits, I had some turmoil in my life. I was going through a breakup and stuff. I dropped it. And I didn't pick it back up until last year when I did a full new playthrough of World.
Full new playthrough.
And like it was like a whole new world. I loved it.
World was, I don't know. There's a little bit of me liking the newer mechanics they introduced in Wilds, notably all the defensive mechanics they added.
Right.
Because in World, it feels like I'm punished for even thinking about playing remotely defensively.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel...
It's like blocking just kind of feels... It doesn't feel as good as it does in Wilds, and that's because there's no skill element to blocking an attack.
That's interesting, because the biggest difference I would draw between new Monster Hunter, specifically like Rise and Wilds, and old Monster Hunter, which like World is in a weird spot for that, but more 4U, 3U, all those, is that you have to be really, really intentional about your attack and when you do it and how much of a combo you finish. Whereas in Wilds, I feel like I can be a little more haphazard with it, kind of trade damage. And you do not want to trade damage in 4U.
Yeah, in World, like if you get hit, there's a 95% chance I'm just gonna end up stunned, and I'm
There is
hoping that he
also
doesn't roll up again.
there's a phenomenon in world that I really don't like, which is that because of all the events that have happened and stuff, they like retroactively give you 1 billion potions and stuff. Like you were
Yeah.
never wanting for mega potions. They just give you 1 million of them. And I
See,
don't
in
like that.
World I
You
was
were wanting
always
for them?
wanting. Yeah, I never had
Interesting.
enough until I finally got to the end game.
See, I felt like I always had enough in world.
I never did. I was running I never had a full
Okay.
stack for a while until I started, like, focusing on crafting them.
Maybe it was because my account was old. It gave me all those
Yeah, I think
retroactively.
it was probably because your
Yeah,
account was old. As
that's
a new
probably it.
player, I was struggling.
Yeah. See, I like that though. I like that struggle because that's where I'm at in 4U. I'm actually to the point where every once in a while I have to go out explicitly to gather honey and herbs and stuff to make potions. It actually in the old games, you have to have a blue mushroom and an herb to make a potion. It's not just an herb. I actually don't
Yeah,
like that. That's kind of
what
annoying.
I've experienced is that I've kind of been grinding out flash pods,
Yeah.
like,
Do you
it's
have
just super important.
the botanist stuff set up?
No, I do
The
not.
tree.
Oh,
Oh, you should do that.
I do have the botanist set up. That's where I've been getting most of my flash pods.
Yeah,
It's
that's where
trivialized a lot of, like, the rest of the gathering I need to do when I can just
yeah,
get
every
48
game
flash bugs.
since I think Freedom Unite has had a farm of some kind every game since then, and it's there are detractors, but the farm
Yeah.
I
It
I don't
cuts
want
down on the grind.
I don't wanna be going on like,
They
in Master Rank, going on a mission just to make high potions, that's not very
they
fun.
don't have it in wilds, though, I
They
think.
do,
They
it's just
do?
different. It's, you talk to what's the boy's name?
Oh, yeah, resource gathering.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
resource
do, you're
gathering.
right. I
That's the
forgot.
equivalent. Yeah, you talk to the boy and he talks to all the villagers and the villagers gather resources for you.
Yeah.
And that's the equivalent in wilds. I do kind of just find in wilds that I'm not wanting that's if I hunted a couple hundred more Zoshia and arch-tempered Ray Dow, that my tune might change, but
Yeah.
in general in wilds I'm not wanting for potions too much.
Nah, I just don't like being, like, so overtly punished for being out of position that
See, I like
like,
that. I
that's my
do like
biggest
that.
bugbear.
I do like
Sometimes
that.
I don't even I take a hit, I try to
Yeah.
dodge, and then I end up in a corner.
See,
There were a
what I wonder
couple
if you're
carts
really
where I
not
was
gonna
just
like,
cornered.
once you get into master rank, like the tail end of master rank, there comes a time where like the only way to make it more difficult is to just start one-shotting you, and that becomes much
Yeah.
more common, tail end of master rank,
I know
especially
that there
in
is a community patch for Iceborne that fixes a lot of, like, the jank and things people don't like about the end game of world.
have you been
Or
using the
yeah.
clutch claw?
I have been. I've been using it a
Okay.
little bit.
The clutch claw was not in that was added in Iceborne, that was
Yeah.
not in base world. I do not like the clutch claw. I think it's a pretty boring mechanic. And it's not mandatory, but it definitely impacts the time it takes to hunt a monster.
Yeah.
You will hunt much faster if you're clutch clawing, insofar as they are balanced around you using the clutch claw. And it's fine. It's not like the end of the world to use it, but I definitely prefer focus mode. If I'm going to have a gimmick in my Monster Hunter game, focus mode is way more fun to me.
Focus mode makes it so much easier to use more weapons.
Yes. And it just feels better integrated.
Yeah, I've noticed that I'm really missing focus mode because if I whiff a combo, I whiff a combo.
Yes.
Focus
Yeah.
mode at least
What
allows
you're
me to
using Charge
salvage
Blade?
a little bit of my damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm ever gonna touch Greatsword in World because I know without focus mode, I'm just gonna whiff so many long animations.
Granted, the monsters move much slower in World
Yeah.
than they do in Wilds. And Rise. Rise is also very fast.
Yeah. But Rise, you have a
So,
lot of movement
you have a lot
yourself
of
as well.
mobility. Yeah, Rise makes you feel like an anime superhero. I
Oh, I can't wait.
I guess they
Can't
all
wait till I
do,
get to
but
that.
it's a little more grounded in World and Wilds, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's heavier, I guess.
Why,
Yeah,
like,
I'm excited to hear your thoughts on
I
Rise Break.
I really appreciate Wilds' perfect block though now more than ever.
It feels so good too
It's
to pull off.
so good to pull off an offset attack or a perfect block or even like a power clash. And
Yeah.
it makes playing more defensively feel more interesting.
It also like rewards you so much for learning the monster's moveset.
Yeah.
Because Wilds, I do think there's before the Arch-Tempereds, there's like a difficulty issue where before Zoshia and Arch-Tempered Raidao, I didn't really feel the need to learn a monster's moveset. You could just kind of react. But I definitely, like, my second fight against Arch-Tempered Raidao was night and day to my first one. Where I was able to get the perfect blocks.
I've noticed in World, I've been more keen to dodge than block.
Yeah.
Because dodge is just no damage versus block. No matter what I do, it's just a little bit of damage.
See, I've always been more of a dodger, which is why I probably didn't notice this. I also used hammer in World, though. Yeah. I loved my hammer in World.
Whereas in Wilds, like, I'm more incentivized to block because I know I can get a counterattack off of it or a clash.
Right. Yeah, and the clashes look so cool.
Please don't vomit on that, cat. Hold on. That's...
He must hunt that monster now.
Me just dragging him off.
So
stopped him.
Any other thoughts on Wilds and World before we?
Not really.
I've been playing a little more. Obviously, I played some Monster Hunter World. I love Arch-Tempered Raidao. I've been playing more Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and this is.
I've heard that is fantastic.
I don't know how much you would like it, Mike. I don't know. You might, because the combat is fun, but it is a lot of story, and I
like. Here's the thing. I like turn-based RPGs.
I think you would really like it then. You have Game Pass, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's been on my list of things to play. I'm secretly a turn-based RPG enjoyer.
I'm early Act 2 in it right now. I don't know if anybody else is playing it. I really, really like it. I'm not a big turn-based RPG guy, but I like the QTE system in the combat, and you can parry attacks. I do think the balance gets a little weird because you can theoretically... Not even theoretically, in order to beat a boss, you need to perfect parry most of their attacks, or perfect dodge most of their attacks. And I find that pretty difficult. It usually takes me a few tries to learn their movesets. I'm not first trying basically any of the bosses. Hell, I'm not even first trying some of the enemies in this game. Like, until you learn their attack patterns and can parry, it's pretty difficult. And it's also not always clear when to parry with an attack. It's not clear It's not always super clear when the impact frame is, if that makes sense. And that's a little frustrating. But once you learn it, it feels amazing, and you are, like, popping off when you finally beat the bosses. It's really, really fun. I wish I could say that I haven't been able to put it down, but the reality is I've been so busy. It's not that long a game. I think it's like 30 hours, which that's not short, but I'm like maybe 10 or 12 in. Life keeps getting in the way. And it's not a game that I can sit down and play for an hour like Monster Hunter is. It's a game that I want to sit down and play for like 2, 3, 4 hours. Like, I want to see I want to see story movement in a play session, because I enjoy the combat, but the combat is like I don't know. I don't even know. You're getting the combat a lot. It's kind of fun, but what you're really working for is these story moments. Which Amid might disagree with, but I am deeply invested in these characters at this point, and I want to know what's going on. I want to know what Lumion City, I don't know, something. It's Paris. I want to know what happened in Paris. I've learned a little bit more about the weird human characters that seem to not die from the Gommage. I've learned a little more about them. I'm deeply invested in that. This is definitely not a game I'm going to put down before I see credits. I'm really excited to see more. It's just there's so much going on. Monster Hunter is doing these like limited time events. I barely was able to get the armor crafted from the Blossom Festival, and that festival's over. That was much shorter than I thought it was going to be. I expected that to go through May at least.
I didn't even get really into it. There's so much to do.
There's some really cool weeb armor that I managed to get that I really like. But yeah, that's Clair Obscur. It will be coming up some more on the show, and I suspect, especially if you end up playing it as well, if we all three play it, I think it will be coming up at Game of the Year talk time. It'll be on the bracket for sure. For me.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that might do it for us this week. Thanks for listening. You can like, rate, and review us on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow us on Blue Sky at Podcast Game Talk, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, all your social media places of choice. Thanks. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. See you guys next week.
Bye.